Hey guys, jumping in here to the live. Give us just a second to get everything rolling. Hey Joe, hey Michelle, can you guys hear me okay? Okay, I think we're good on audio now. We'll give everyone a few minutes to get in here. Hello, thank you for the audio confirmation. Hi B, Scott, Michelle, Joe, welcome everyone. Just gonna give it one more minute. We started a little early to make sure everything was working okay. How's everybody doing? I'm sure you guys will take the gift cards. You'll probably win. You always win something. All right, so it's 8:30. Let's get into it. Really, this whole webinar is going to be about the power of saying yes and why people say no. So I'm going to start with a quick PowerPoint just to give you a quick intro, and then we'll jump into everything else. So this webinar is going to focus on the xTool F2 Ultra UV, this orange one right here. My name's Eric. I'm at xTool Pro Hub. I own a retail store. We run, I think, 9 xTool lasers in the store. So super excited to be doing this with xTool. This is our second webinar we've done. The first time I touched a laser was in 2024, and then it just kind of blew up from there. So now we run a huge fleet of lasers. We have embroidery, UV printing, DTF, and we're super excited to be a part of xTool Squad. We offer a ton of resources along with xTool and tons of free videos on YouTube. So check those out as well. This is airing on our channel and on xTools as well. And just to go into this a little bit, during this webinar, we'll be giving away 3 gift cards for $100 each. And that's going to be 140 Canadian dollars if you're located in Canada. And we're also running exclusive sales. So let me pop up the graphic here for the sale so you guys can get all the codes to save some money. All right, so if your order total is between $9.99 and is over $9.99, it's going to be $100 off with code ERIC100. So that's been increased. And if your total is over $39.99, then you're going to be able to use ERIC300 for $300 off. And then the codes for the Canada site are here as well. So keep those in mind, guys. It's a pretty good deal on the xTool lasers as well. And we'll also be giving away 3 xTool gift cards here. And those will be sprinkled throughout. So to start with it, before we get into the projects, we're going to do a quick overview of really why we're saying no, what saying yes does, and then dive into some projects with giveaways sprinkled in between. Please feel free to stop and ask questions. I'll be trying to monitor the chat. My wife is also monitoring the chat off screen, so she'll ping me if I miss something that's important, and we'll get to that for you as well. Let me move into the second slide. All right, so I want to start with really some of the things that we've all said at one point or another, and this is the whole background of what this presentation is about, or this webinar. So I can't engrave that, it'll melt. That glass will chip, that material's too delicate, that design has too much detail, or maybe even I don't want to replace it if it fails. And if you've been doing this long enough, you've probably said at least one of these things, or maybe all of them. The important thing is, though, that those aren't bad decisions. Those are smart decisions when you know your tools. But here's the part that we don't always talk about. when we say no, the customer doesn't stop wanting the thing, right? They're still going to want the thing. And just because you can't do it, all that means is they're going to go to somewhere else to get that thing. So that's not a skill problem, that's a capability problem. Customers, they don't care what laser you own. They don't care if it's a diode, they don't care if it's a CO2, fiber, or UV. They care about one thing, and that's, can you do the job? So when we say no, even for good reasons, it chips away at that trust that you've built with your customers. It makes people hesitate to come back, and it definitely stops those referrals from coming in. Outsourcing doesn't really fix that issue either. So it just eats away at your margin, slows everything down, and puts your reputation in someone else's hands. And the key point is that capability is revenue. So if your shop can confidently handle more materials, more finishes, more delicate work, you don't need more customers. You make more money with the ones already asking. And that's what this machine, the X2 F2 Ultra UV, is really about. So that pretty much covers our intro. So what we're going to do is get into a little bit of an intro on the X2 F2 Ultra UV. Let me get rid of this presentation here. There we go. And I'll hide that altogether. Cool. Okay, so as we go into the X2 F2 Ultra UV, I'm sure you guys are familiar with it. It's this one right over here. So it's a 5-watt UV laser. It's capable of cold processing, super fine detail. It can engrave pretty much any material. And we're going to get into some projects with that today. And I have some laid out of some things that we've done if you want to see a couple examples before we even get started. So these, let me grab both of these and come up there to the camera, and I won't really be able to see what I'm doing. So, but we have a couple different ones here. Let me walk around the back, make sure I'm in frame. So this was a little whiskey glass. This is clear glass, no coating, no anything required to make this happen. You don't have to spray it with $80 a can coating or paint it with tempera paint. This is just the finish that you get. Super smooth, no fracturing like on a CO2. And then this is a shot glass, and this was actually my mess up. So this was the first one I did when I was testing settings, but it's the only one that I didn't give away. So I saved it just to show the teeny tiny detail in the letters in the bottom. So that's kind of like the resolution you can get out of this thing, which is completely wild to me that the laser can get that small. That letter is less than 1/2 millimeter in height. Any questions so far? I'm just going to check the chat real quick. It looks like everybody loves their F2 Ultra UV. Awesome. Anyone that doesn't have the F2 Ultra UV, drop questions that you have about it throughout here, and we'll make sure to answer those as best we can. So the first thing that we're going to do is actually, I think we're going to do a giveaway up front before we even do a single project. So let's go ahead and knock out one of these giveaways here. All right, so the first one is going to be for a $100 xTool gift card. Again, that's $140. We just need you to comment. Let's do the comment glass, just GLASS. So one of the most popular materials people are doing with the F2 Ultra UV is glass. So let's drop that in the comments, and we'll give everyone a couple minutes here to do that. And then we'll continue on with a couple projects. We only have 75 viewers right now, it looks like, so invite your friends in. I know that this is a Thursday evening, but hopefully people can make it as well. Lots of comments. All right, so speaking of glass, that's the first project we're going to do on the F2 UV today. So xTool will get in touch with whoever wins the giveaway. Let's go ahead and share my screen here, and we'll talk about the project we're going to do. Then we'll show setup on the laser. So what we're going to do is we're going to engrave on glass, but because I didn't want to go through setting up the RA3 on a webinar, we're actually just going to go on the bottom of a glass here. So I'm going to share my screen and show you the design, and then we'll talk about what we're doing here. All right, so I pulled up xTool Studio, and what we're going to do is engrave, like I mentioned, on the bottom of this glass. So in xTool Studio, there's a couple settings that I've been using that really help to make this work. And instead of doing, again, around the outside, we're going to do that here on the bottom just to make it a little easier. These are actually different settings than I've used in the past. I usually use 90, 190, and 500 lines per centimeter, but we're going to do 300 just to see if we can get through it a little quicker. And since we're going on the bottom of the glass, we're actually going to invert this design. And that way, when somebody picks it up and drinks it, you know, they can look in and see that design. So when we place it in the laser, I don't know why I just pulled that off. The way that I've been using focus is to go ahead and focus on the bottom of, is to focus on a piece of masking tape. So I usually take a really thin piece of masking tape and put it on there. So I'm going to bring this camera up front and center. And we're going to drop this in here to show you what I'm talking about. So, good morning. All right, when that comes up, you can obviously, you want to place your blue dot on top of here, and then you're going to want to raise that up until your red dot aligns with it. You can also just do this within the software in autofocus, but I like to give it, you know, a pretty good starting point and then shut this down most of the way. We're going to come back over into the software and do our autofocus. And our focus is set, our image is refreshed. Now we're going to go remove that piece of tape. Keep in mind when you move your tape, you're going to move your item. So refresh your camera. You don't need to take a new focus. If you want to be super accurate, you can probably subtract, like, I don't know, 0.01 millimeters from this and make it 121 point, maybe 5.7, 5.8, something like that. But masking tape isn't very thick, and I haven't really had any issues with this. The other thing you're going to want to do with UV, especially because this glass is very clear and the camera is at a tiny bit of an angle, I'm going to move it up a little more to get a straight down shot. And I would normally make sure to frame this first. But since we're straight up and down and I can see the reflection of the light, we're going to eyeball this one for the sake of speed. And then remember, because we're engraving on the bottom and we want to look at it from the top, we're going to reflect this horizontally. So we're going to reflect it like that, and then it's going to give us the look that we want when we're looking at it from the bottom. And we're going to go ahead and hit process. And this is going to take about 1.5 minutes. So I'm going to start this. We're going to hit the button, and then I'm going to check the chat and see if there are any questions. And you can watch this one engrave on the other camera while it goes. I've been really impressed with how quickly this thing can engrave. So again, we have this at 300 lines per centimeter, which is pretty detailed. We have done glass as high as 500 before. That's what we did the Jack Daniels one I showed you before, but that one did take, you know, probably a solid 10 minutes or so. So I think 300 lines per centimeter is going to give us plenty of detail there. I don't think we're really going to need to do the 500. And again, this is something that if you're running just a diode laser, or even if you're running a CO2 laser and people bring in glasses and they say they want them engraved, sometimes, you know, you have to tell them no because it's going to fracture too much. Or maybe they don't like the look of some of your samples of engraved glass where it's a little more fractured and kind of flaky. But you don't get that with the F2 Ultra UV. It's just a frosted, clear finish. So it's been very popular. All right, we've got 12 seconds left. Let's go over here and get ready to pop that out. All right, let me switch the camera so I can show this to you guys. Okay, So this is it from the bottom. So you can see it's backwards from the bottom, right? But if you're looking in it like you were drinking out of it, very clear. Dad, we love you. Super cool for a gift for a dad. You could, of course, switch the design around, but it's just an awesome frosted finish with no coating, very little time, super easy. We just centered that based on the camera. We didn't even frame. Turned out awesome. So glass has been something that we've been saying yes to a lot more since we got the F2 Ultra UV. And yeah, I'm just reading a couple of comments here. Engraving paper, no. Straight on glass, yes. Paint, no. We don't have to use any paint with the X2, with the F2 Ultra UV. You will have to use some type of paint or coating if you're using like the S1, any type of diode, maybe the regular F2 or F1. You would have to use some type of coating, but with the UV, you do not. Zobo, I see your comment about a complex logo at high res came out amazing. It's awesome. Shelly, see your question. We're located in Roanoke, Virginia, so we were buried in about a foot of snow over the weekend. And then Cynthia, for repeatable results, feel free to schedule a call with a Pro Hub or a demo room, someone that does education on these, or just check the official xTool Facebook group. There's all kinds of stuff there. 6 hatch, yes, we can do inner crystal engraving. So I actually have a couple up here. They're pretty far away on the light, but we have one right here with our business logo, one right here with a horse inside of it. Several of these down here that we have, you can engrave on internally. It's K9, not K5, but you need K9 crystal blocks for those. I have not done white ceramic mugs yet. So we have not done that. All right, so the second thing that we're going to do is, let's move into a second project, I guess. And then another thing that we're going to do are one of these style nightlights. So this one right here says Sweet Dreams on it. We engraved on the front of this one, so you look at it straight. But for this one that we're going to do on the live, we're going to actually flip the design and do it on the back as well. So we're going to do it as a look through because I think it gives you a little bit better of a frosted effect if you do it that way. So I'm going to grab this, and this is going to be on clear acrylic. So completely clear acrylic. It's not any type of special glass or anything, just clear. Let me switch cameras so you can see the setup on this one, but it's going to be very similar. So let's switch over to this guy. All right, so we're going to pop this straight in here like that. Again, masking tape is your friend. Just make sure the blue line is on it. We're way too high. And again, you don't have to focus automatic or manually. You can absolutely just drop it in autofocus mode in the software, and it's going to do its job for you. But I just like to give it a good reference point. Let's jump into the software, and we're going to switch over to this nightlight file. So this is the one we did earlier, and then we did not mirror it, but this is the one we're going to do now. So if I move it over here so you can read it, it basically says sleep tight and dream big, but we have it again mirrored. So I'll unreflect it just so you can see what I'm talking about. This is the original design. Let me change the color so it appears better against the black. So we've got sleep tight and dream big. This is a pretty big graphic, so this is going to take a minute to get there. First, we're going to autofocus, like I mentioned. So we're going to click this autofocus button. And we are going to frame this one because I really don't like rotating images to be perfect on the screen. So what we're going to do, instead of even refreshing our camera view, is we're going to move over here. We're going to take off the piece of masking tape. Let me switch the camera. We'll go ahead and click framing before I do that. So we're going to let it frame out this square. And then we're going to place the block under where the square is. I don't know if the square is even going to come through on camera, probably not, but I can see it in person. So we're going to square this off just with the blue square that's going to appear on the acrylic. It kind of shines through it, so you got to look real carefully on acrylic. I'm doing this at an angle and in a hurry, so we might not be. No, I think that's pretty close. All right, so we know we're focused. We're reflected. Oh, we're not mirrored. So let's go ahead and mirror this again before we hit engrave. So we're going to reflect this horizontally. For this one, I've been using, I know this looks crooked on the screen, but it's not because we didn't refresh our camera. So if I refresh the camera now, let me stop the framing, refresh the camera. It might give you a better view. And it looks a little high, doesn't it? Do we want to trust the camera or the alignment? I think we're going to trust the alignment on the laser, off the framing laser. So these settings for this graphic were straight off of the xTool recommended. All I did was change the lines per centimeter. So I set the material to a clear transparent acrylic, and then I used their one-click set to click one of these down here. And then all I did was just change the lines per centimeter to be 250. And so this is at 100 power, 375 speed, 250 lines per centimeter. And remember, we're reflected horizontally because when we put this on the base, we're going to look through it from the backside. So we're going to put it on the other way. So let's go ahead and process this one. This one might take a little longer because it's a bigger image. Yeah, this is almost a 5-minute engrave. So let's get that started. And then I'll show you what one of these finished looks like while that one engraves. And I'll pop the camera over to the laser actually engraving it. And I'm going to look through some questions here. So let me scroll back for a minute. We'll use this time to go through a couple of those. My wife just let me know I missed a question a while back about glass settings and if they're all the same. I've been using a couple of the same settings for glass. And again, that's 90 power, 190 speed, and between 300 to 500 lines per centimeter, depending on, how detailed your design is. So it really just depends what you're looking for there. If you find better ones, feel free to let us know, but those ones have tended to work really well with me or for me. White ceramic tiles I have not done yet. There is a difference in engraving the canine crystal. I see somebody ask that. So you need to use the separate lens that comes with the machine, which I can pull out here. Let me just walk around back. All right, so let's give you a break from watching that engrave. Let's bring this up here. Okay, so this is the lens that you will need to put in your machine. It's super easy to do. There are tons of videos out there on it. xTool even gives you instructions on how to do it. Once you put it in the machine, the other one comes out and this one goes up in there. You're also going to need to put the base on there. So this is what the base looks like. It is already machined to fit directly in the center there of your work area. And then it even has this little attachment on the side to make sure, it walks you through every step of how to measure, what to measure, what details to input. And then it's going to give you a 3D map of where you actually want to place those items within the crystal. And you can do both 2D and 3D in your crystal engraving. So like this one is a 2D engraving and it's just our logo. So it's just floating in the crystal. But then the second one was like a chess piece. So this was a pretty textured 3D engraving. This was the first one we ever did the day we got the machine, actually. So there is a different process. It's completely different settings. Yes, it is cast acrylic. I saw that question. Can the F2 UV engrave color glass or only transparent? It can engrave like stained glass as well. I haven't done anything with ceramic pins, so that's kind of out of my wheelhouse. I see somebody ask that. Vinay, no, after a lot of engravings in a short amount of time, I haven't noticed any type of efficiency drop in any of the xTool machines. And for those of you asking about different types of materials, if you have questions, again, I really recommend checking out the xTool support page and booking a demo with either a demo room host or a Pro Hub that has the machine that you're looking at. If you book one, you can see which machines they have when you click on their profile. Someone like me, we have every xTool machine that's out right now, minus the metal fab. So we don't have that one, but all of the lasers, all of the other lasers we do have in-house, and we'd be happy to do a demo on. Miguel, for your question about which laser head you need, the UV, they're both UV, right? One is just for inner engraving. It has a different focal depth, different glass inside the lens. One is for anything flat. So that's the only time you would switch it. And yes, it does run really quiet. I actually don't even have this one hooked up to a purifier right now. Just because it's so loud, I didn't want it to be overwhelming. So I have the AP2s hooked up to the other F series. And that guy just finished. So let's pop this out and put it in the base and take a look at it. Let's just clean it off. It's a little dusty. Okay, so without cleaning it off, because I don't have a wipe right here, you need to wipe this dust off ideally. But so if we turn it around, this is what you get through there. So it's really nice and frosted on clear acrylic. So I don't know how far this cord will reach, but, oh, not very far. That's it. So maybe I can bring the camera over there. Or I'll just move this other camera. Hold on one second. That's easier to do. So let's move this camera up here. And we can actually show you. So that's what it would look like on one of the lit bases. This one changes colors. It's got a weird refresh rate, so that's why it looks like it's pulsing or something, but it's not, I promise. It's just the way the camera captures the refresh rate. But, and then we can throw the one we just did on here, actually. So let me put this back down for just a second. Pop this one off. And again, we haven't wiped off the dust, so you might see a really light outline. But if you take a wipe to that, it's going to just get rid of all that. There you go. So in 5 minutes, you've engraved a lit base and made a nightlight on clear acrylic. Again, very easy to do. The settings are super simple. xTool makes it easy to really just type your material in and then adjust your settings a little bit. You, of course, can run test grids. They give you all kinds of software tools to do that automatically within xTool Studio. And it's, you can sell one of these. These, I think, were like, I don't know. I bought these on Amazon a long time ago, a big pack of them. It might have cost like $4, right? And you can sell this for 30 to 40 bucks easy. All right. One more project before we get into our second giveaway, and that's when I'll go through some more questions, is heat-sensitive plastics. So things that would normally melt that you're having to say no to, people want customized. Maybe it's a phone case. Maybe you want to brand your 3D prints. That's what we're going to do today. So we're actually going to engrave on, these are little clickers that we made for Valentine's Day. So these are 3D printed in-house. Little clickers, pretty cool. But we're going to show you that you can actually go ahead and engrave on this to personalize. So that's just another upsell opportunity. This could be for anything, though. It doesn't have to be just a 3D printed toy, right? Think specific parts or anything plastic that you want to engrave. That one can't sit on that side. So let's grab one that doesn't have the keychain hole. Same process for this. I think you guys get the idea of how to focus the machine. So let's drop that down in here. But yeah, for anything plastic, it can be clear, it can be colored, it can be PLA, ABS, it can be TPU, it can be really any type of plastic that you were afraid to engrave before because either it would melt or it would react badly. With the cold processing of the F2 Ultra UV, you really don't have to worry about that. So it's not going to melt the edges, it's not going to cloud the material. You don't have to worry about warping or toxic fumes. So let's go ahead and do that real quick on a 3D print. I'm going to grab the software window. We're going to pop back over into here and we're going to go into 3D print. Let's do an auto measure. And since this is a box of, quote, click hearts, since it's a clicker, we're going to do To My Sweetheart on it because I think that would be cute. We're actually going to frame this and lay it out directly on the laser too, because again, I don't really like having to angle this all funny. So we're going to leave it sideways. It looks like it's at a 90-degree angle. We'll refresh the camera in a moment. We want it to be going towards the top of the box. So let's throw it in there like that. And then we'll do a quick refresh of the camera now that we've focused. Oh, we need to stop the framing first. And for this, I just used, again, just ABS plastic white settings. These are default recommended by xTool. I went into one click set, clicked here, and then I upped the LPC. So that's the only thing that I can recommend, or that I really would recommend checking on these xTool preset settings that are in the material library. If you're doing something small, you might want to check what xTool's default lines per centimeter are inside of Studio, and you might just want to increase those. But if you get an output that you like, a lot of the times the settings are fine. You just might want to increase the LPC there. So this one should be very quick. I'm thinking less than 30 seconds. Yeah, 10 seconds. So this one won't take long at all before we can get into a second giveaway. We'll let that engrave. And I should have moved the other camera to be bigger, but it'll be done by the time it gets there. There we go. So let's just dust that off real quick. And then, so you get a super cool effect on 3D printing. So anything plastic, you don't have to worry about melting, disfiguring, no bubbling, no clouding. Just one more thing that you can say yes to if someone wants something customized.
Someone asked, why did you edit the lines cursor?
All right, I'm gonna scroll back and look at a couple comments real quick, and then I'll put the giveaway up after because I don't want to inundate it with comments. So let's scroll back for just a minute. And I see one, J&M Creative Prints. Yes, you can do engraving on 3D printed PLA without melting it. That's exactly what I just did. This was printed using PLA, so we just engraved directly on that. Do I have a favorite that I like to use? No, not really. I use all of them. So portability, smaller F1 and F2. The F1 Ultra down there on the end is the first F-Series I ever owned, so it has a special place for me. I really enjoy that one. I still use it all the time. F2 Ultra is just a bit faster and more powerful than the F1 if you want to do things like cutting thin metal, color engraving, fine-tuning the control of the MOPA laser. That one's super powerful. And the F2 Ultra UV has just been our kind of, this one can do everything laser, and especially for expensive items. That's another thing that maybe isn't in this. But around Christmas time, being in the mall, you know, we did a ton of items from other stores. So they would go buy like a Bible or something really expensive. Like these were $100, $200 Bibles, or some things they would buy from other stores and bring them in here to be engraved. I don't know exactly. I think one of them was goat skin, lamb, something weird. I don't remember. There were a bunch of different types of expensive Bibles that a couple of different customers brought in. And sure, I could probably do it in the F1 Ultra or the F2 Ultra or either one of these two if I was doing something small. But it's just, you run the risk of damaging an item. And even though we have a waiver form, I don't want to upset a customer by damaging one of their items. I would rather run it on something with cold processing like the UV, where if it's not dark enough or deep enough, I can run it again, but I can't, go back. I'm not going to damage it with cold processing if I start low. Yes, I agree. Support is fantastic on on all the xTool products now. And on olive wood, I haven't engraved on olive wood with the F2 Ultra UV, to be honest. I've engraved a couple different types of wood, but olive is not one of them. Why do I up the LPC? I see that question on here. Again, I mostly up the LPC when I'm doing smaller, more detailed designs. It increases, think of LPC sort of like your resolution, right? So if you're doing something teeny tiny, you need to have that much higher, or you're not going to be able to make out those smaller details, or it's going to blow them out. Do I use the F2 IR for anything now that I have the UV? Yeah, I use the F2 still, especially if we're doing events, craft shows, anything portable. We do some on-site engraving events for corporate clients, and sometimes we'll bring the F1 and the F2 because they're quick and easy and they take up much smaller of a footprint. Usually if we do those, we know what we're going to be engraving ahead of time. If we go to craft fairs or craft shows, I usually take the F2 and maybe the F1 Ultra. I don't usually take the UV. It's too expensive of a laser and too big to lug around. I'll take the F1 Ultra. It's a little lighter. It's not as expensive if I do something crazy and break it. But the F2 almost always comes with me because of the camera, and it can do most things. And then I have the F1 Ultra if I need just a tiny bit more power. And I think I made it through most of these. As far as the pleather coasters smelling, leather stinks. Leatherette stinks. It just does. You need to get ventilation. So hook up an AP2, or hook up, if you have one of the smaller lasers, desktop purifier. But the AP2 does a great job of eliminating most of those fumes. Or get the IF2 and vent outside. It doesn't smell with UV as much. No, though. I just saw the second part of that comment. You will still notice some smell in some materials, but it's not going to be as strong because, again, you're not using heat. You're not burning those out. All right, let's jump into the second giveaway. So let me throw up our graphic here. So second round giveaway, again, this is for a $100 xTool gift card. It's going to be $140 Canadian if you're in Canada. Let's comment, let's do PLA. So just PLA, just those 3 letters, since that was the latest thing that we engraved. And just as a reminder, guys, I'm going to throw this up here for a minute too. These are your codes for limited time deals. I think these expire on, it's either the 1st or the 2nd. I think it might be the 2nd. xTool, correct me if I'm wrong. I know you're babysitting. So if you're on the US site, it's Eric 100 if your order is over $9.99. If your order is over $39.99 on the US site, use Eric 300. You're going to save $300 off. If you're on the Canadian site, xtool.ca, I guess. I don't know. Use Eric 130 if your order is over $13.99, or Eric 450 if it's over $53.99 Canadian dollars. And that's going to save you guys quite a bit on anything going on. It does stack with whatever they have going on right now. I know that this works. We tested it. So there's your sale codes. And again, comment PLA, and they're going to pull a winner for that here in just a minute. All right, while that's blowing up, let's talk about the next project we're going to do. So let's talk about high value items. Surface integrity, only removing the very top layer without damaging any material underneath. So let's do, I was kind of, we're just going to pop an iPad off of here. I have like 4 iPads at our checkout counter, 1 for customization, 2 for checkout. We're just going to engrave on the back of one of these iPads. This is Apple's I don't know what A16. It's the newest one that's cheap, right? So we're going to engrave on the back of this to show that you can engrave on sensitive items without damaging internal components. These are silver. I don't know why I got bright iPads. I should have got the dark ones and you would have gotten a little more contrast, but same process as before. Don't sweat it. It's going to be fine. We're going to focus here. Get a rough focus anyway. And then I just saw another question I'm going to answer real quick for shipping. They put a post up yesterday, Sienna, saying that they have the F2 UVs back in stock in the US warehouse. So they are ready to ship unless they've sold out since that post. I know they posted that. I think it was yesterday morning or maybe it was this morning. I don't know. I know that I saw it. So I can't comment on it if that's changed, but very recently they were caught up. So maybe xTool, you can answer that question. All right, let's pop back over to the software here, and we're going to go over to our iPad project. So I'm going to put our logo on an iPad. And for this, I did play around with the settings myself. Luckily, I got it right on the first go, so no worries. We're going to make this one a little bit bigger. And we're going to also frame this out manually. And then I think based on the settings that I found earlier, I'm probably going to increase this power to 100 and just let it rip. We're going to frame this out, though, and then we're going to talk about why we do it this way. So square that off, square this off. That looks pretty centered. Again, we're not trying to be perfectionists here. This is our own equipment. I'm not too worried about if it's not centered. It's not going to be very visible anyway. But let's refresh the camera just to see. So let's stop the frame, refresh the camera. And yeah, that looks pretty centered to me. So we're going to leave that alone. We're going to go ahead and process that. Estimated time is 49 seconds. So super quick engraving. Let me switch the camera over before we hit go, actually, so we can watch this one engrave. Let's pop this up here. Okay, cool. Well, you kind of have a bar in the middle of it. I don't have the lid closed all the way. You should definitely wear glasses if it's not closed all the way, but I'm standing back here and it's not in my eyes. There's a shield up. Yeah, so it's engraving super quickly. Again, the cool thing about on the UV is you can absolutely run this multiple times. However, I've already tested that, and just due to the color of this iPad being that silver, it doesn't give you a ton of definition, but you can feel it. There's not a bunch of contrast. If I wanted more definition, I probably could, I don't know, run it a bunch more times, but I like the way that it turns out. I like the white look. So we're going to let this engrave out. And then I'm going to switch cameras, and we're going to show you this on the high def camera instead of this little one. Cool. So let's pop over here real quick. So it's dusty. Hold on. Let me wipe the dust off of there. So if you wipe the dust off, and most importantly, the iPad still works. So, you know, no damage. You don't have to worry about it breaking your iPad, overheating anything internally. Doesn't get hot. Cold processing. 40 seconds, and you can now say yes to engraving someone's, you know, $400, $500, $600 electronic device. You can even engrave on the MacBooks on the back of here without worrying about really damaging those. So let me check comments really quickly. Congrats to whoever won the giveaway. The font, Cynthia, so you asked about the font. The font I'm guessing you were talking about not our logo font, but the one on the 3D print. This is called About Love. I know it's on Creative Fabrica, I think. I use this all the time. It's one of our most popular fonts. Another just trick. So we have this font wheel. We have a few of them up here at our checkout. And we shorten the font names and we make them something that we know people will like. And we keep this at our checkout or at events with us. These are like our most popular 10 fonts, 7 fonts, I think. It's 9 fonts. So people can choose. If you throw them out a million fonts at once, they're never going to be able to decide. If you let them try to use your computer, you'll be sitting there for half an hour. Make a little font wheel and let them play with that. It makes it way quicker. Vanessa, your other question about an $800 knife, that would be nerve-wracking. So if you can't really test on the product, you need to get as much information as you can about that. I wasn't really too worried about the iPad, especially because it was in the F2 Ultra UV. So the good thing is, you can run it again. So change your settings around. You're probably not going to damage anything with the UV if it's metal, especially. So I would use xTool's default stainless steel settings, set it up, let it run, and then run it again, to be honest. We also do a waiver for really any item we should be, but sometimes we slack off on our own policies and don't make everyone sign it. But we do have a waiver that we make people sign, especially if it's something expensive, just because even if the laser doesn't mess up, what if we lose power? These ones up here are not connected to a UPS, whereas the ones in the back are. So if these drop power and it's on a tumbler rotating, I'm never going to be able to line that back up. Luckily, I don't ever run tumblers out here, but that's just an example. If you lose power while doing something, I would consider UPS. Always consider some type of form like a waiver. Do your best to take care of the customer if something happens, but at the same time, make sure they understand the risk before they give you an $800 knife. My settings on the iPad. Yep, let's go over those. So I was doing 100% power, 400 millimeters for speed, and 300 lines per centimeter. I left the frequency and everything else alone. Just 100, 400, 300. About Love. Yes, that's correct for the font name. Joe, I hope your chat gets unstuck. And yeah, those fonts are very popular. Babus New and Lobster are very popular fonts. We use Babus New in a lot of our branding. So I don't know if you can see this sign up here behind us, has that on the bottom, and on the top is a font called Amber Whiskey. Those are also super popular. And yes, Jim's recommendation is great. I would maybe practice on a cheaper knife that's similar first. I know that steel, it's all different. They're different compositions, right? But when you get close, in my experience, if you're doing it on the UV anyway, it's not like you're doing it on the fiber laser and you're looking for a color, right? So get pretty close on a similar knife, try that, and then run it again. Liz, settings are definitely not the same between the F1 Ultra and the F2 Ultra UV. So what you need to do, honestly, is run test grids. There are tons of videos on this. It's actually, I'll actually bring up my screen here and I'll just show you how to generate one in case you don't know. So if I were going to do a test grid, right, let's just pick any shape like a rectangle. And let's say we were going to do an engraving test grid. We're going to drop that over here, set it to engrave. We're going to go to apps over here on the left, and we're going to hit material test array. Before you do that, if you want a good starting point, you can also just use xTool's material settings. So you can come in here, you can choose, let's actually bring this to another one because I wanted to save those settings and I haven't gotten to yet. So let's paste this here. And let's say you're doing it on, I don't know, pick a material. Let's say you're doing MDF, just to be easy. So let's pick MDF. It doesn't have a test grid on MDF, so let's pick a different one. Let's pick anodized aluminum, because I know it has some there, or at least a recommended setting. So here you have different settings for the xTool F2 Ultra UV. These are kind of like guidelines. I would always test before you just believe in one of their settings and go, because you never know what could change between the material you have and what they've tested. So once you have like a starting point, like you say, okay, 85, 500 or 70, 750 is directly in the middle of that. So we want to stay around there. Or you can take down the exact speeds and powers that were on their test. You're going to click applications, material test array, and then you're going to go ahead and specify your parameters. So you can set what power you want to start and stop at. You can also change this to be frequency pass, but we want to test power and speed before we get into testing lines per centimeter and that other stuff usually. So we're going to say we want to test between 20 and 100. And for speed, we want to test between, I don't know, 400, or let's do like 200 and 2000. And then you can change however many rows and columns you want, depending on how detailed you want it. And then you hit done. And xTool Studio has already went in and made all of these individual squares, each one with a different setting. So if I can Command Shift G or Control Shift G to ungroup this, I can go in and click on each individual one and see the settings for it. Then once you engrave this test, you can save which one is your favorite. All right, so moving on to the next one. I think I'm caught up on comments. If I missed one, somebody ping me. But let's go into this is actually going to be our last real project that we're doing. So we want to talk about detail and how tiny this thing can get. So what we're going to do, I showed you one of the shot glasses at the beginning, but what we're going to do is actually engrave an itty bitty QR code on a little black metal flashlight. This is actually a UV flashlight. So if you're doing K9 crystal, get one of these, and that way you can check the quality. I ordered maybe 200 of these guys. So I checked the quality of all of them before getting them. You want to be able to shine your UV light straight through them without it refracting anything. That's how you can tell. But we're going to engrave a QR code on this black light or this UV flashlight just to demonstrate this. So we're going to set it in the laser. You would probably normally want to use something to hold it still, but we're just going to set it still and kind of cowboy this. So set it up there. We want it to be moved over just a tiny bit. So the top of that metal band is directly in the center here. And we're going to focus. Let's switch our view over to here. We're going to talk about how accurate these cameras are as well. So flashlight, let's focus. Let's refresh our camera. Let's zoom way in. Now, the cool thing about the UV, it can also do curved surface engraving. So if you wanted to do this without putting it on a rotary, you could absolutely map the curved surface, tell it how dense you want the mapping to be, and then you could engrave it, and it will move the top of the laser as it goes along to be in the correct focal depth. However, we're not going to do that because we're going to do such a small spot that it doesn't matter. So this is just over 5 millimeters tall. Well, just under 6, I guess would be closer. It's 5.8 millimeters for the whole entire thing. So think about how tiny these little individual dots are, right? So we're going to process this. And for this, I'm using a modified anodized aluminum setting, 85 power, 500 speed. I'm actually going to bump this all the way up to 800 lines per centimeter just to show you the detail on it. And this is going to take 8 seconds. So you won't even have time to watch it. But I'm going to flip it around to the camera in just a second. All right. So let's switch cameras. Again. Can I borrow your phone for a second?
My camera? Oh.
Yeah, because I can't prove that it works. Okay, so this thing is, if I can't even focus on it, I can't get it close enough for you to read it without it dropping out of focus. But you can even read, if you zoom in, you might be able to see it. If I get closer, it can't focus. But it has Scan Me in teeny tiny letters in the center of it. And if we pull it up right here, and there you go. Still works. QR code working. 6 millimeters with these teeny tiny. actually
Here, take a
can,
picture and zoom in on the picture.
I can do it like this. I can take like a, I can show you
that's
like a
even better.
4x zoom on here. If it can focus. Just look how tiny that is. If you can see the scan me in the camera on the camera, this is really hard to do. But super clear, very tiny, no way to show that type of detail on a camera. But just overall, really small engraving. So think precision parts, think if you need to do a business order where maybe a client needs their parts QR coded, or maybe they need some type of, micro, like very small engraving done. We actually had someone reach out to us about engraving tiny little letters on glass that need to be less than 1/2 of a millimeter in height across there. So very small distance. We were able to say yes to that. We didn't have to tell them no. We told them absolutely, let's talk about it. They're bringing in samples to try this weekend, actually. So with all of that said, let me check comments one more time. I don't think I've missed anything. All right, so let's go ahead and do our third and final giveaway. All right, so again, oh, that says second round, doesn't it? Let's put up one that says third round. I don't guess it matters. It's the same amount, guys. So $100 to the xTool US site, 140 Canadian. And for the code this time, we're gonna do flashlight. So throw up the keyword flashlight in the comments. You'll be entered to win this prize. That's gonna go for a couple minutes. And again, just to remind you, they do have the sale going on for the next few days, I think. So go to xtool.com, click the link in the description or in the pinned comment, and then you're going to choose, you're going to enter code ERIC100 or ERIC300, depending on your order total for the US site. And you're going to enter either ERIC130 or ERIC450 on the Canadian site for those discounts there. So up to $300 US or 450 Canadian dollars off of your total. And that stacks with anything that's ongoing on the website. All right. Tons of flashlight comments. So overall today, we've engraved a ton of stuff that you wouldn't be able to do on really any other machine here. Clear acrylic without any type of coating, clear glass without any type of coating, PLA, so plastic. We did something super tiny at 800 lines per centimeter. That was 5 millimeters in height. Those individual dots, guys, if I wanted to measure those, I guarantee you they're less than like 1/4 of a millimeter. Probably smaller than that. So I don't have my calipers on me or I'd check. But we did a 3D print. We did the bottom of the glass. What else did we do? We did an iPad. Forgot we engraved the iPad. And yeah, you only need to comment one time, flashlight. And again, if you guys have questions on anything we've covered here, questions on the UV, you want to see a demo of the F2 Ultra UV, go on to xTool support site. We do demos there every day. You can book one day out. Hey, Betsy, good to see you here. I just saw your name pop up. And yeah, go ahead and book a demo with me. We do demos here. They're free right now. I don't know when xTool will start charging for them again, but they haven't yet. So demos are free. We also do material training sessions, and we can do that virtually, or if you're in the area in person. We do workshops here in person as well sometimes with xTool. Kathleen, I see your question about the iPad settings. I'll jump back in here just to look again because I've already forgotten. It was 100 power, 400 speed, 300 lines per centimeter. Engraving angle and frequency and everything, I leave that the same. And then The type of oil for inner engraving, xTool's releasing a kit. I don't think they've released it yet. So in the meantime, you want to use pure paraffin oil. And that's only for the spheres. You don't have to use oils for the blocks. You want to use oil when you do a sphere because of the refractive index of the way that the shape is. So you need to put it in something that can contain it, and you want to cover it with oil. xTool has a guide on that as well. Their engraving oil is not available yet. I know that paraffin oil is working. Bases for the acrylic were from Amazon. I saw someone ask that. And congratulations to all the winners here. If you have questions about settings or anything, feel free to reach out. All the settings are in a spreadsheet that's free. It's linked in my profile there. Happy to help you guys out. And then again, we do free demos as well through xTool, or you can find one locally to you. You can go put hands on one in person. If you're in California, I can't do an in-person demo, but someone in California can. Engrave a glass when the cup is not straight. Yeah, you can do it. So you need to angle the rotary. Depending on which way it angles, it can be a pain, right? So for instance, on the RA3, I love the RA3. I have one here. Let me pop it out real quick. I did a whole video on how to engrave glasses on the UV with the RA3. If you haven't seen it, it's on YouTube. The RA3, the only difficult part is if it needs to tilt down for any reason, right? So if for some reason you can't hook it on either way and make it work by rotating this up and you need it to go down, the only way to do it is you're going to have to angle this. So it sucks, but hopefully I've really only had that happen on wine glasses. And it was a super tapered wine glass that I couldn't grip from the bottom at all because it was going to break. And in that case, I did have to do some MacGyvering to make it work, but I ended up making it work. Just checking over comments one more time. Awesome. If you're going to place an order tomorrow, make sure to use that code Eric300. xTool's got my back. They commented that as well. Eric300, guys. Yes, it will work on curved wine glasses that aren't straight. So let me grab one. I don't have a super tapered one. It really depends on what you want to do and how far you need to go. So they do have a curved surface mode, but it's not going to work with the rotary for now. I think they're working on adding that feature. But as long as you can get this plane level, you're good. If you want to engrave this rounded part, for some reason, you would have to do like a limited distance from here to here on top and then do a curved surface mapping of that area, and it would automatically move that, but you wouldn't be able to go too far wide with that. Whereas on the rotary, of course, you get more freedom as long as this plane on the top is level, because that's where you'll be engraving. The one thing about UV lasers is they're super sensitive to your focal depth. So you can't really get away with being out of focus by much at all like you can on a CO2. On a CO2 laser, you have a little bit of room. On the P2, the P3, you can be a millimeter or two out of focus and it's not going to affect anything. If you do that on the UV, it's just not going to work. Steffi, I don't know if I'm doing anything with xTool about the inner engraving, but I do a lot of stuff with their machines on my channel. I have a quick video about it there. I'll be doing a more in-depth one. Same thing for the settings spreadsheet. It's on our YouTube, guys. Just check out the YouTube. It's linked here, or it might not be linked here, but my name is at the bottom. So just look for @MarkedAndMade. You'll find us there. And I think that's pretty much it. I think I've caught up on all the questions. So we're at 1 hour and 2 minutes in. If there's any other questions, drop them in the comments and we'll check them after the video. But thanks, guys, so much for hanging in there with me. I will catch you guys later. It was great seeing everyone here. And I hope you guys get to say yes more, right? That's what this whole thing was about. So thanks so much. Have a great night.